One day, a man sat alone in a quiet room. On the table in front of him was an old photograph, himself as a child, smiling without a single worry in the world. He picked it up, stared at it for a long moment, and felt something he hadn't felt in years. He began remembering every decision, every moment that had shaped the person he'd become.
It had been 8 months since he lost his job. 8 months of applications, interviews, and silence. He sat in yet another waiting room, phone in hand, scrolling through a familiar pattern of messages. We regret to inform you that we have decided to move forward with another candidate. He'd read that sentence so many times, it barely registered anymore. His savings were running low. His confidence was running lower. Part of him wanted to just walk out before they even called his name. But he stayed. Because what other choice did he have?
His name was called. He walked into the room and sat across from 3 interviewers, their expressions unreadable. He'd rehearsed his answers 100 times the night before, but the moment he opened his mouth, his voice came out shaky. His hands were trembling slightly under the table. The questions started, the usual ones. Tell us about yourself. What are your strengths? He gave the same rehearsed answers he always gave, the ones that had failed him in every interview before this one. He could feel it happening again, that familiar sense of things slipping away, of saying all the right words, but somehow still getting it wrong. Then one of the interviewers leaned forward and asked something different, not the standard question he'd prepared for. Tell us about a time you failed and what it actually taught you, not the version you'd put on a resume, the real one. He froze. For a moment, the room went completely silent in his mind. He thought about lying, about giving some polished, safe answer about a weakness that was secretly a strength. But he was tired of pretending. So instead, he took a breath and decided to just tell the truth. He told them about the job he'd lost, not the sanitized version, but what really happened, the mistakes he'd made, the moment he realized he'd been coasting instead of growing, the months of doubt that followed. He talked about how it broke something in him and how he'd spent those 8 months rebuilding, slowly, painfully, one small step at a time. The interviewers, who'd heard hundreds of rehearsed, perfect answers that week, were quiet. Not because his answer was impressive, but because it was real. He kept going, sharing more than he'd planned to, no longer trying to sound impressive, just trying to be honest. 3 days later, his phone rang. He almost didn't answer, bracing himself for the same message he'd heard so many times before. But this time was different. We'd like to offer you the position. He sat there for a moment, silent, letting the words sink in. Then, for the first time in 8 months, he smiled. A real one. He stepped outside into the afternoon light, and for the first time in a long while, walked forward like a man who believed in himself again.